Please welcome Diana Lee.
Yeah.
This is Collabs.
We decided we're just going to really streamline the podcast. Attention spans are low. So that's just what we're going to do.
I'm excited about getting to sit down with Diana Lee today. Obviously, founder, CEO of Constellation Agency. I mean, they're massive, a huge success story. But I don't know about you guys. I've been following her for quite some time. So the fact that we get to sit down.
I got to like listen to her talk at the WOCAN luncheon at NAMAD last year.
Oh.
And the only thing that I remember is like by the end of it, everybody in the audience is like it's basically like church, right? Like she's like bringing down the house, and then like everybody, like she ends with like a stand, and everybody's up out of their seat. It was pretty, and like that's the WOCAN vibe in general. But like she had it. She
rocked the house,
you know. Yeah.
You know, yeah. I mean, she's lived in Philly. She's a New Yorker. She's an immigrant.
So we're going to talk about Philly. Is that what
I mean, it is the best topic. Unless we're talking about the Eagles, in which but reality, you look at the things that start to stack up, you know, really had a fight for everything. Came to the country as an immigrant, not knowing the language. There is a special fire in someone like that. That I think is when you start reverse engineering it and looking at the success of Constellation, it makes sense that it is the way it is. And by the way, they have one of the best websites I've seen in a long time. It is strong.
That's fair.
I got to put that out there because I was impressed. I was like, this is a really good website. Just saying.
I like it.
Just saying. Well,
hopefully we won't have to talk about their website, but we really hope that you enjoy this conversation with Diana.
Oh, Diana, it is so good to be on this episode with you. It's been a while since we've had any conversation. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. Thank you so much for inviting me.
So, I mean, there's one part specifically of your background that is super close to my heart, and it's the fact that you've lived in Philadelphia.
Oh, wow. That's so funny. Yes.
Oh, no.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to open the conversation.
Yes.
You guys waited for me just to have conversations by yourself? I'm not.
Yeah. I grew up in South Philly. And so like I was born and raised in Philadelphia. Now I'm in upstate New York. And I know you moved how old were you when you moved to Philadelphia?
So I was 5 years old. I immigrated from South Korea when I was 5, and we ended up in Philly. And, you know, I come from South Korea. I still remember this. And like, I can't speak the language. I don't know what they're saying. The diversity.
They can't speak the language either, just so you know.
Can I tell you though, you know what's so crazy, Paul? Back in like 1974, the Blacks, the Asians, and the Hispanics did not speak to each other in Philly. Nobody spoke to each other. It was like
really
enemies, and we would steal each other's bikes. It was so crazy back then.
That sounds about right. That's amazing. Did you when did you leave Philly?
I left, my parents actually worked, and then they ended up buying homes in the suburbs. So I ended up going to Springfield, which is in Delaware County. And I grew up in Springfield, went to high school, and then ended up going to New Jersey and then to New York.
Yeah, well, that sounds about right then.
Yeah.
That sounds about right. Okay, I had to start there. But you
had to. I know the next question he's going to
ask.
No,
I'm not going to do it.
But listen.
I'm not going to ask any sports questions.
It's going to be sports, and then he's going to be
have you worked in a dealership?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, you're the perfect guest for me. I'm like, you've lived in Philly and you've worked in a dealership, which in my mind makes the perfect industry partner.
I have to tell you some of my dealer stories. They are crazy.
Tell us one right now. Tell us one that you still remember. Like
okay, so I started a dealership. It was in Worcester, Massachusetts, which is the worst armpit of the nation. Literally.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
See, and I thought that was Lubbock, Texas.
No, but, I was going to college, and I still remember this, right? I got robbed 3 times in my apartment at college. That's how crazy it was.
Oh my,
but
that is.
Story. At the dealership, like back in like those days, and this is back in 1989, you know, I wasn't allowed to go inside of the dealership unless I actually had
a customer.
Get out on the point.
Didn't care.
So old school.
Snowing, it was sleet, it was rain. I was out there, and then unless you had a customer, and I would lie. I'd be like, "Oh, come and follow me to get my card," so I could actually warm up inside.
That is as old school as it gets. Like, I think there are a lot of people in the industry who don't understand. Like, you could be in like Atlanta, Georgia heat in 106 degrees, and you better not walk in this building unless there is a customer with you.
I know. It's like a street fight in order to survive back then, right?
And there's like five people like on the point at any given time. So
Like,
you see somebody, you're like, please, I know you're waiting for the bus.
yeah, and it didn't matter if I was Asian, if I was a woman. Like all the dudes were going to compete with me, and they were going to take me out. So I had to take them out before they could take me out. And this is
That makes one of the that I mean, this explains why you're so successful now.
Like,
because
okay, so I worked in I'm proud to say, like, I worked in a dealership. I was in sales. Do you remember? And this was back in only like 2009, 2010.
Yeah.
But you're having a conversation with someone, out of the corner of your eye, you see someone pulling on the lot, and you just kind of turn and you just like look over there at that cool thing over there, and then you're like, and by the way, running off to grab a customer.
I know. And you know what? Like, I feel terrible because I love, dealer people, because what they have to go through in order to survive. But just realizing that they get $100 flats for what they have to go through, like, imagine, or $90 flat deals. Like, think about that. Like, the amount of hostile customers coming in, the amount of the environment, how it's competitive, all of the situations, social, political, all that you have to deal with to sell a car, and then you get a $90 flat. Like, we have to, dealer employees are seriously heroes to actually go through all of that.
Come on now. I'm going to get snaps from me here.
It's true, though. It's true.
All right. So obviously that's something that incentivized you to say, you know what? I think I'm going to learn about marketing.
It didn't happen like that. It was like survival instincts. Like, think about it, right? Auto back in 1989, and it's like street fighting there. We had a guy named Don the Pimp, because basically Don was like 5 foot tall. He would smoke a cigar every single day, and these women would come in, and basically he was Don the Pimp. Like, literally, this is the
Wait, was he really a pimp?
He was really a pimp. He was really a pimp. He was a 5
I'm like, she just described an Italian family reunion.
Okay.
I've not laughed in 5 minutes of a podcast this much in a very long time. I just have to be real.
I mean, I already know the headline for this one. Meet Don the Pimp, right?
Okay, I have a question. I'm dying to ask. You had mentioned your parents, right?
Yeah.
And immigrating from South Korea, coming here. You said they worked, and then they, it sounds like they worked tremendously hard, and that's something that they instilled in you. So here's my question, because I've only immigrated from Canada. However, I have noticed a difference in mindset coming from one place and going to the next around how I think about and see and capitalize opportunity. Is that something that you feel is instilled in you? Like, I know you're talking about dealerships in 89 and survival instinct. Like, do you recognize or feel there's something in you where you're like, holy crap, there is so much opportunity to capitalize on in this country?
Yeah. So my parents, it was the Korean War at one time, and they both had lost their parents during the Korean War. So my dad went to the Vietnam War, not because he had to, because basically it was because he needed to make money. And so he joined the Vietnam War so that he could actually make money. He comes back and he said, there is a land of opportunity. It's called America. We must move there. And everybody wanted to move to America. It was very, very hard. So you had to get invited by like somebody, a relative, or somebody had to invite you into the country. So we get invited. And I'm like thinking, like, okay, I can't speak to these people. I don't know their language. My face would turn bright red when anybody would talk to me. And then, so I was very, very shy. And then I end up at the dealership because I was going to college, and I didn't want to ask my parents for money. Like, that was the key, is like, don't ask them for any money because they already have all this burden. They're working 15 hours a day. They try to get us out of Philadelphia, where there's street fighting and drugs and all that. And I go to Catholic school my entire career life because they don't want me to get into trouble. And then I end up in college, and I'm like, okay, I don't want to ask them for money. And here is the auto industry is amazing to allow people to join. Immediately, you are a part of the clan. Don the Pimp was part of the clan. And they protect you, but you're competitive with them at the same time. But it's still a dealer family, and
That's facts.
the pay is good. Like, you could actually make enough money to pay for college. So that's what I did for 4 years. I went to college, I paid for schooling, and I realized, like, that was when I finally could make money that wasn't like waitressing or doing like babysitting, that could actually make money to pay for something on my own. And then that gave me the drive to say I should be a finance manager and be a GSM and move up the ladder. But without the experiences of being at that car dealership and feeling included into a family and knowing that you were going to disappoint the family if you didn't sell enough cars, right? Because you don't do it for the $90 flat or the $70 flat back then. You do it because you don't want to let each other down. And that's what I remember.
Wow.
Okay, not what I
You
expected this
just
podcast to start as.
explained. Okay, so I actually had someone last week ask me. They were like, "So you didn't plan on being in the car business. Explain why you're so passionate about it." And I've never been able to articulate it in that way. It is. It's like, every single person, even the guys that I had salespeople. They'd be like, "I don't learn anyone's name till 3 months in because they may not survive." Right. But even them, there was this distinct like, but I'm still gonna try and help you survive. I'm still gonna try and help you make it because I care that much. And I'm gonna beat you to the customer, but sometimes you're gonna beat me and I'm gonna help you out and all of that stuff. And it is this like, every family's dysfunctional at some level,
Yeah.
right? And the auto family is dysfunctional, but it is a family, and there is a lot of care placed for the person sitting right next to you. The care is idiosyncratic, in the way that comes out, but it is care.
So there was a guy, his name is Bobby. I still remember this. And Bobby was a coach.
Bobby the Butcher? Don the Pimp, Bobby the Butcher, right? I feel like, okay, you got Bob.
Was a cocaine addict, and drugs were at an all-time high back then, right? At the car dealerships. So he's a drug addict, and he used to do coke. He goes missing for 5 days because this is what would happen: is people would sell, they'd make a lot of money, and then they would disappear.
Yep.
And so he disappears. So on the 5th day, we're all calling, trying to figure out where Bobby is, right? We're like, where is Bobby? Somebody goes, I found Bobby. He's locked himself in a closet in his house. We got to go find Bobby. We got to bring Bobby here because if we leave him there, he's going to end up dying. So everybody leaves to go grab Bobby, bring him back to the dealership, and we put him in the back of the room. His face is all cut up, right? And we're like, you're going to sit there, Bobby. You're not going home. We're going to watch you 24/7 so you can't do any more drugs. But that's what I mean. It was a family. It was like, we want to make sure Bobby doesn't hurt himself. And this is why I love dealerships. This is why I love the dealer community. And fuck Carvana, really, because that is really franchise community must always continue. It is our family.
There's like, so we're talking about the dealership and just kind of, I think, what was even generally more cultural back in the 80s. And now here we are, 30, 40 years later. Weird to say it that way, but here we are 30, 40 years later. And we've been able to, I think, as an industry, take a lot of steps forward instead of just like keeping people employed or keeping them, like out of drugs or off the streets. Like now we're seeing a very intentional push to enhance people's lives, to help them be a better version of themselves, to kind of like think outside the dealership with this family mentality and saying, how can I contribute to the families of those who work inside the dealership? So it's almost like there's a mentality that you're saying of a family exists very strongly. And it feels like we're in a season where the industry is able to reach further outside the store, if that makes sense, into like the next generations and invest. Are you seeing and feeling that as well?
I absolutely do. And I talked to a VP of sales one day, and he's like, Diana, if I don't hire the immigrants, I don't have a staff right now. Because a lot of the Gen Zers, they don't want to actually work at a dealership, right? They're very careful about the places they work and where to want to be seen. And even in Korea, it's like so crazy. These Gen Zers in Korea have a mommy card because they refuse to actually find a job that they can actually be that's like below them, that they feel like they shouldn't have. So they have a mommy card that they charge on their card to live for living expenses.
Is that like the slang name for it? A mommy card?
A mommy card. In Korean, it's a mommy card, right? So they have a mommy card. They'd rather be on their mommy card versus actually taking a job that's going to be below them, that they actually would have to tell on Instagram or in social media. So
seems like you have feelings about this topic.
Listen, like everybody else, we all have to make a living. And why do we have to be ashamed of what we do for a living as long as it's legal? To me, it's bullshit. And overall, it builds so much character of who we are and what we will be one day. But people don't want to do that stuff anymore. A lot of Gen Zs want softer, white collar type of jobs, and overall they won't take these jobs. So the dealer was saying, like, if I don't hire immigrants, I don't have any staff. And
what market was that in?
This
out
is
of curiosity.
New York metro market. So it was in New
York
Jersey.
Metro.
Totally makes sense.
For BMW. So I'm not like talking about like General Motors. I'm talking about BMW. And he had 4 stores. And he said all 4 stores, all immigrants that work for me.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
I think
cool though.
Yeah, it is cool. I love it.
Well, we're gonna see a change there. My oldest is 17, and so he's kind of like toward the tail end of Gen Z. Where's Gen Z end? Does anybody know?
I don't
No clue.
He's in it. I know that much.
My kid's Gen Z too.
Okay. Yeah, I think Gen Z can be as old as like 25.
Yeah.
Right?
I think so.
Yeah. Michael's like, oh, I'm Gen Z.
No.
Yeah.
Nope.
No Gen Zers here.
Oh no.
But like that's the experience that you're talking about. I was just talking about like last week or 2 weeks ago. I saw an article that was talking about Gen Z starting to think more about the trades. Like maybe automotive, like if it's not technician, right? It's not a trade, right? When you think about car sales, you think of F&I. One of our things as Automotive State of the Union, this More Than Cars docuseries we've been producing, and Kyle put words to this when I first met him, like 3-4 years ago. He said, I want to make this industry so great to be in that you literally are going to need a referral to get a job in automotive.
Yeah.
Like, do you know someone who can get me into the industry?
Yeah. I love that.
And I see, what we see
how
is
proud Kyle is of that. But like
he is.
I
Look
see
at
the
him.
glimmer in your eye.
I still like sometimes I forget about it, and Paul or someone else will remind me about like that moment when I stated that in front of people for the first time. And it's like, I mean, that's what you're talking about. It's like, why wouldn't this industry be so proud enough to tell that story such that all of culture is like, I have to work in that industry. There's like, how do you get a job in that industry? That sounds amazing, right? And I think it's kind of on our shoulders to do that because we know it exists. It's just we haven't told the story of it existing,
Yeah,
So.
what's more American than the auto industry?
Absolutely. That's what we're saying.
It's exactly what an American is the auto industry. And the stories are crazy at the dealer level. I love it. It's so damn entertaining. Like, just talk to the dealers and just talk to the salespeople. They will entertain you to death.
And there's no, like we've heard it said that there's no ceiling in the industry, but there's also no floor. So you can come in at any point, and if you work hard, if you pay attention, if you learn the business, you can be the general manager. Like you can get there without any college, right? With just, and story after story after story after story, we see people who are like, oh, Kyle and I were with the general manager yesterday, one of the most successful Toyota stores in the country, and started as a detailer.
Exactly. I was at Sonic and people told me at the executive level.
Yeah, they're right. They're executives.
Amazing.
At a publicly traded company.
Yes.
Name another industry, right, that you can do that.
Exactly. And they started, they'd been there for 20 years, but they moved up the ladder and now they're, EVP. Who does that?
Exactly.
I do want to ask, because like you have such a clear passion for the industry, for the dealers, and you now exude that through a different lens that isn't being a finance manager or a GSM or something like that. Like, how do you take that passion and translate that into the lens that you now have as a business owner operator at the agency and technology level? Like, what's the translation layer that allows you to keep that fire in that business?
I think that it's super crystal clear to me in terms of what I want to do if I remain in auto. And our mission is to innovate, like revolutionize. And so with all of this AI technology, I have an AI team, and literally they're one of the best out there, and they're building LLM models, chatbots for the future. So to realize that like ChatGPT and Gemini and all of the chatbots, there's 5 of them right now, they're all pulling open source data of you right now, but being able to also do it at the dealer level and to be able to do it for the regulated industry and innovate in a way where each individual dealer can actually be their own future chatbot is what motivates me to continue doing what I want to do best, which is like, I love the industry. I love the people. I am one of these people that fights direct to consumer brands, because in my mind, I'm like thinking, we only talk about the bad stuff of what happens at dealers, right? We always say, well, it's the dealer's fault. Well, do you know how many dealers gave to their communities? Do you know how many dealers funded projects during COVID? Do you know how many dealers fund the latest, Little League and the homeless center down the street? We never talk about any of that. We just talk about dealer bad, dealer bad, dealer bad.
I wish I had like a soundtrack to play behind that. When you're saying that, I heard it in my head. I'm going to send you a couple of links after this podcast to this docuseries we've been filming called More Than Cars.
Yeah.
And the point of it, Kyle and I have gone around the country telling the good stories from car dealerships for this very reason. It's literally like working on the brand of auto dealers.
Yeah, absolutely. Because we do such a bad job to stay away from the public because we're so afraid that we're going to get bashed about so many things. Because, like when Vroom took out that ad, I was furious. You know that ad I'm talking about, right?
We know. Kyle actually made a response commercial to it.
I was furious.
Yeah.
Furious.
We'll send you that too. It's fun. You're getting a whole bunch of links from us.
Yeah. So when they went under, I was like, yeah, okay, that's what happens, right?
It's funny. You know what happened when they went under? We post, like, we have a daily email and a podcast, and we went and pulled all the Vroom employees and scraped LinkedIn and made a list of positions. And then we posted it saying like, hey, we would love to welcome you into like the dealership model. And a bunch of those people now found positions in dealerships that have kind of like embraced them. It's a really cool story.
Amazing.
Yeah. And so like when Vroom left, it was like, hey, like competition makes us all better. Carvana, Vroom, they really highlighted some things that the consumers want and helped us pivot, right? To deliver. Like we definitely stepped up our game.
Yeah.
But in the end, like we're never betting against dealers.
That's what I'm saying. And so that's what my passion is, like, because I think like people think like, because I'm educated, because I launched Constellation, because we're, 65 fastest growing company in the US and we hired 200 people, moved 9 times. And it is a success story, but in the sense that it should be about the story of supporting tier 3 and automotive at the franchise level. I get sick to my stomach when we start talking about switching everything to D2C. I go, then what about all of the Americans that are employed by the entire auto industry? What are you going to do? Blow them up?
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. No one left to buy cars, right?
There you go.
It's
Diana, you are clearly passionate.
Yes.
I can't wait. I can't wait till people get to meet you at ASOTU Con, and we get to hear more from you in the ASOTUverse because you're passionate about dealers, and that's like right up our alley. Thank you so much for joining us today on
I had
Auto Collabs.
so much fun.
Good. Oh.
I think we're gonna make some trouble in Baltimore, May 15th and 16th.
That's exactly what's gonna happen.
I was like, can we say this on a podcast halfway, like several times through that? I
You
mean,
know
we
what
can
I love?
sense.
You know,
what do
you know what like just stood out to me that I love? She has this passion and grit, but like not like chip on your shoulder grit.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
I don't know. I can't explain it. The vibe was because like, people that have a chip on their shoulder. It's like
Yep.
they only make a positive statement so they can make a negative statement. And there were moments of that interview where like Kyle said it. He's like, I've never laughed so much in the first 5 minutes ever. And then right after that, I was like, am I about to cry?
Yeah. No, it's when you have that passion and that kind of, I mean, I'll call it aggression, right? Because it is like an aggressive, like belief that is followed with action and words, but there's also just a very apparent humility. And it's the combination of those two that really is disarming, number one. And number two, it's like, yeah, I really want this person in my corner.
Yeah.
Yeah. You guys didn't catch it, but she said this thing that now I'm like, I'm going to corner her at ASOTU Con. She said this when she was talking about the AI stuff that they're doing. She was like, to allow a dealership to be their own language model.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I was
Heard
like,
that.
whoa, haven't like, you've heard about like leveraging the dealer's data or like exploring the dealer's data, or you maybe like the chatbot on the website, but like that the entirety of the dealership is a language model. That's a whole new, like,
That's a good context. Yeah.
it's really that. I mean,
That's
you can't
Star
come to
Trek
that
stuff.
conclusion without having all that history.
You know why I did hear her say that, but you know what I was thinking in that moment, and everyone will have to just forgive me here.
What am I gonna have for lunch? I knew it.
No, I was like, no matter how hard I try to make my studio or y'all's studios look awesome, nothing looks more awesome than having New York City skyscrapers in the background.
You absolutely. And you know what? It's not cheap.
Facts.
You're saying I can't make that happen? Well, I got Philly skyscrapers in my background.
Oh, it is. That's the ASOTU scarf.
It is. It's the ASOTU scarf.
That's the OG.
I must say, like, if you have not planned on coming to ASOTU, where you get to be in the room with individuals like Diana Lee, and you're sitting there right now and you're wondering, oh man, there's so many unknowns. There's so many uncertain circumstances, the economy, interest rates. What do we do with all these EVs? How do we get people to buy stuff? What are we doing? This conversation for me is the exact reason why you need to go to ASOTUcon.com, get your ticket right now. Don't delay. It's in Baltimore. What's the dates? May 14th,
17th. Yep.
You got to be there in the room. And this conversation for me was exactly why. We hope you enjoyed this conversation with Diana Lee. She's going to be there in Baltimore. Come and check it out. Be in the same room with her and with us. We'd love to see you there. On behalf of Kyle Mountsier, Paul J. Daly, myself, Michael Cirillo, thanks for joining us on Auto Collabs.
Welcome to Auto Collabs.